Welcome to the Tower Talk podcast, a place for honest and open conversations to support you in living your best life from the inside out. Join me on this journey of self-discovery as we explore what it means to reach next level badassery and cut through the BS. So tune in, stay a while, and I promise I'll be right here alongside you as we figure this shit out together. Vanessa, Marin, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you. And why don't we just go ahead and start off with introduce yourself. Who is Vanessa Marin?
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me. So I am a licensed sex therapist. I've been in the sex therapy field for over 20 years. And with my husband, Xander, we have a business where we specialize in helping couples keep the spark alive in long-term relationships. So we make all sorts of fun guides and challenges for couples. And our mission is really to take the intimidation out of intimacy and help couples connect more in the bedroom.
Vanessa was the first, I don't know if you actually know this about yourself, but you were the first person that validated me for having a higher sex drive than any other partner I've ever had. I've always thought it was
I'm
this
so glad.
weird thing. And I was like, maybe it's just me. Am I the only person? And then you have had so much content around this, but I was like, oh, I feel so validated. So let's start there.
Oh, I
Sex,
love to hear
sex.
that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
appreciate it so much. So sex drives. Is that is there a normal, is there men have it more than women or tell us about that.
This is such an interesting topic, and I'm really glad you brought it up because we have this idea in male-female relationships that it's always the man who wants sex more. And there's this kind of he'll take it wherever, whenever, whatever type of thing. Like men just always want it. But we polled our audience about this, and I was actually shocked by the statistic that came back. In our community, 45% in 45% of male female relationships, it was actually the woman who had the higher sex drive. So almost half.
Yeah.
I knew obviously this has to exist. I've experienced it myself in plenty of relationships, in seasons of my relationship with Xander. But when I saw that 45% of our community said that was the case for them, my mind was blown too. We just never talk about women being the ones with higher desire. And so I was really glad to be able to share that statistic and to help people realize it's normal. So the interesting thing about sex drive is it's very relative. It's not like your shoe size. Oh yeah, I'm a size 5 and I'm just always a size 5. My sex drive is relative to my partner's. Does it feel like mine is higher than my partner's or lower? But then I could have another partner and it's maybe completely the opposite. Also, sex drives really fluctuate. I kind of referenced a second ago, I've had seasons of my relationship with Xander where I've been the one who's had a higher drive. And I've had seasons of our relationship where I've had the lower drive. So it really fluctuates a lot. And there truly is no normal when it comes to drive either. There's not the right way to do it or some sort of frequency that we should all be striving towards. It really is very individual.
That's so good to hear. I mean, I'm sure with a lot of these questions, and I get it on the fitness side too, there is no normal with anything. There is no broad statement, everyone should do this or this. And it's just how you communicate with your partner. And you have a whole book, which I'd love to talk a lot about, called Sex Talks, New York Times bestseller, which is incredible. And you go over a lot of these ways to have conversations with your partner. So can you give us just kind of a brief synopsis of how we can actually communicate these things to our partner?
So I wrote Sex Talks with Xander together because I wanted to write a book to my younger self who struggled in her own sex life of even as I was pursuing this career and knew that I wanted to help people get more comfortable with sex, I've had plenty of my own experiences where I knew rationally, I should talk about this with my partner. We're having sex. We should be able to talk about it. But I didn't know what to say. What do I say? When do I say it? How do I say it? When do I bring it up? And I had so many challenging experiences in my relationships because I couldn't talk about things. So with this book, we wanted to take this topic where, again, we all know we're supposed to be talking about sex. You see it in, when you're Googling all your secret sex questions late at night in bed, it's always in the article. Talk about it with your partner, but none of us know what to do. So we wanted to take this huge concept and make it really practical for people. So we boiled it down to 5 conversations that we think every couple needs to have, whether you're in a great relationship, whether your sex life is really struggling in your relationship. Like, we think these 5 conversations will have a positive impact on every couple. And then we lead you through the exact conversations in the order. We tell you exactly, like, here's what to say, here's how to say it, when to say it. And we also give you a lot of example answers and scripts too. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll hear a question about my own sex life. Like, if, somebody will ask something like, well, what does great sex mean to you? You're
Yeah.
sort of like, I don't know. Like, what are the options? Right. So
Yeah.
we give a lot
Give
of
me multiple
options in the
choice.
book. Yeah. To like help people get that conversation started and start to identify, like, oh yeah, I think it's like a little bit more like this for me, or a little bit more like that.
Yeah, and it's been so helpful. Honestly, in the past, probably I'm in my mid 30s now. It was like my late 20s where I was like, "Oh, I should actually like talk about this with people. I just want to like understand my own body more." And it's so weird that it took that long to like actually really talk about it. So, if someone's like super new and just like knows they are doing those late night Google searching, like how do you even talk to anyone, let alone just your partner, about sex without it being super uncomfortable?
So the first conversation, I'll give it away for you. Like, the first conversation that we have in the book is a conversation that we call acknowledgement. So the mistake that most people make is like, they get it in their heads, okay, I can talk about sex, I can do it. But then we go straight for the problems. And we think we have to talk to our partner about all of our complaints or frustrations about our sex life. Why do you never initiate sex anymore? How come we're not having date nights very often? Are you even attracted to me anymore? And of course, that only reinforces that sex is this scary, overwhelming, awkward, embarrassing thing to talk about. So we
Yeah.
wanted to go in a completely different direction and show people, like, let's just get started getting comfortable with the topic. Let's not even try to address any issues, have any goals, solve any problems. Like, let's just get comfortable saying the words. So
Yeah.
that conversation is all about creating positive conversations about sex in your relationship. So again, it's no complaints, not making any requests even, it's just getting comfortable. So a great, like, practical way to get started with this is to reminisce with your partner about some of your favorite sexual memories with them. So go to your partner, just kind of catch them in a random moment when you're both in a good mood, and say something like, you know what just popped into my head randomly today? I was thinking about our anniversary trip and that hotel that we stayed in, and how we stayed in bed all night that one day, and all day that one day. And that's it. Just kind of leave it there, like, yeah, just popped into my head. It was a fun memory to think about.
Yeah.
So those kinds of conversations start to lay the groundwork of like, oh, sex can be a fun thing for us to talk about. It can feel like exciting to reminisce about these memories, and connecting to start, acknowledging the experiences that we've had together.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like, actually, it's funny because I think I remember that in the book. And I remember the exact moment that I thought of that I told Teddy. I was like, hey, I just like brought it up to him. And of course, it led to other things or other conversations, right? And it got you guys like both excited about it, which was really fun. What if you just wanted to like talk about it with friends? If either you didn't have a partner, or if like, say you and I were like out getting dinner or something, like what is a good way to talk about it with friends? It's almost like I feel like sex is like you don't talk about sex, religion, or finances, right? That's like the
Mhm.
things that you don't talk to your friends about, but you want to. Like, is there a way to bring that up without prying?
I think you could even phrase it like that, of saying something like, I'm finding myself feeling so uncomfortable talking about certain topics, but even, with you, like my good friend or my friends, if you're in a group of people, like, I want to be able to be vulnerable and open and talk about this kind of stuff. So sometimes it's like, it's not even starting the conversation. It's like talking about talking. So bring up
Oh,
your
yeah.
challenges of like, yeah, I'd love to talk about this, but I feel, embarrassed or kind of afraid of it, or I'm worried that maybe you guys don't want to talk about it. The one thing I always tell people, like, I do think people are getting much more comfortable talking about their friends about sex, being a little bit more open. But something that I've noticed over the last few years is that a lot of us still feel this pressure to act like everything is perfect and amazing and okay. So we can talk about sex more openly, but it's like, oh yeah, we're having it all the time. Oh, are you not having it all the time? It's really amazing for us. And there's this kind of like there's this bragging that comes in, and yeah, just this way we feel like we have some sort of expectations that we're supposed to live up to, even with our closest friends. So I think if you can think of it this way, of like giving your friends the gift of vulnerability, like be that first
Mm,
person to step up and say, you know what, actually, I've been struggling a little bit with my desire lately. Like I've been so stressed out and I just have
yeah.
not been in the mood. And it's scaring me because I love my partner so much. And we do have great sex when we do have it, but I'm just not really feeling that desire to connect as much. So if you can be that person to like go first and be brave, you're going to unlock so many more powerful and interesting conversations with your friends.
That's such a great idea to bring it up like that too, because then that kind of opens the floor to everyone to tell their story or relate or be
Mhm.
vulnerable as well, which is super helpful as someone that's like, I want to talk about it, especially now that I didn't like really talk about it until my late 20s or realize anything. I'm like, who wants to talk about butt stuff? Because
Yeah.
I like this is awesome. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that because I do feel like too sexual health is a part of your health and wellness. And that's just
Mhm.
why I love having you on the show and also just like having you a part of my realm because it is a huge part of just like your
Yeah.
wellness in general. And it's
Yeah.
nice to talk about.
I'll give you another great conversation opener that can work for friends or for your partner as well. Like use this podcast as a way to open the conversation. So you can say like, "Oh yeah, I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts and she actually had an episode about sex on and they were talking about, da, 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 da." So if you bring it up, bring up some other sort of thing. So it's not you saying to your friends
Oh
or to your
yeah.
partner like, "I want to talk about butt stuff right now. Who's up for it?" It's like it gives you this way to kind of test the waters. So let's
Yeah.
say you're sharing it with friends and you're like, oh yeah, they were talking about butt stuff in the episode, and you kind of pause there. If your friends are like, oh, if they seem uncomfortable, if they change the subject, then you're like, okay, maybe we're not quite ready for that.
Yeah.
But if your friends are like, interesting, what did they say about butt stuff?
Yeah.
Then you've got, the open door. So it kind of gives you this little opportunity to pause and see what the reaction is like. And then you can either be like, oh yeah, just a funny little episode, or like, oh yeah, let's deep dive and like get into it.
Yeah. So I mean, we're opening the door to butt stuff. So we might as well just like go there, you know? As someone that I grew up in a household where we didn't really talk about sex, but also like just growing up, it was like butt stuff was like a anal sex in general was like, oh yeah, that's wrong. Like, don't do that. That's weird.
Mhm.
So if you're interested or like wanna like get into it and don't really know how, what is like a way to kind of start?
The absolute best way to start exploring butt stuff, and this is the recommendation that I give to anybody, regardless of how nervous or not nervous you are, is start with anal play. So there
Mm,
does not actually have to be any sort of penetration whatsoever. Because they can get pretty nervous about penetration. It can feel intimidating and overwhelming. And it definitely is a new sort of experience if you've never tried that before. But
yeah.
the really interesting thing about your butt is that you have just as many nerve endings like right on the surface as you do like internally in your rectum. So you can play with the anus itself without having to push, finger, toy, penis, anything like that actually into the rectum. So just play around with that. You can even start that on your own too. So I recommend like try masturbating, get yourself turned on, you're already feeling good, and then use the finger of another hand to like reach around and try exploring that area on your own. Or you can do it with a partner as well, or you can use a toy too, but just having some stimulation on the outside. And then that'll give you a sense of like, ooh, does this feel good? Do I like the way the nerve endings feel right here? And I want to continue exploring more. Or like, this isn't really doing it for me. I don't really like it. I don't really care to explore more.
Do you still feel like there's a stigma with anal sex for like only specific type of people do this or not so much anymore?
We're coming a long way. People are
Yeah.
getting a lot more comfortable. We polled our audience, and 69, which is of course hilarious, my favorite number, but 69% of people said that they were curious about butt stuff, which is more than I've ever seen before. But there is still a stigma against straight men exploring their butts. We have
Yeah.
this association that, a lot of people have this stereotype that only gay men will enjoy any sort of butt stuff, which, if you really think about it, makes zero sense whatsoever. So first of all, just from a purely, anatomy standpoint, like, we all have nerve endings in all areas of our bodies. There's
Yeah.
nothing gay, straight, bisexual about nerve endings. Like, they're just nerve endings.
Right.
So we all have the capacity to feel pleasure in that part of our body. But the thinking around the stereotype usually goes like, well, but gay guys have anal sex. So if you like anal sex, then therefore you must be gay. You know what else gay guys really like? Blowjobs. Hand jobs. Like, does that mean if you like a blowjob that you are also gay? I don't think so. So
Yeah.
it's a very silly, outdated, and completely inaccurate stereotype. And I really want to encourage straight men to be curious about their butts, because there are a lot of nerve endings. It can feel super, super fun and pleasurable for a lot of men having a little bit of anal play. And again, there doesn't have to be any penetration if you're not comfortable with that. But even a little bit of anal play can give you the best, most intense orgasm of your life. So it's definitely something worth exploring.
What age did you get like explore anal sex?
Oh, good question. I actually can't remember, but I'm like 90% sure that Xander was the first person that I explored backdoor with. So that would be
Okay.
around 23, 24. So it definitely took me like a few years to get around back there.
It's funny that you say you're like a few years. I'm like, I feel like I didn't even really like know what that was until I was like 30. And then I was like,
Mhm.
oh, wow, there is a lot of things like going on back there. But it's funny because when I was like when I was thinking about doing this episode with you, I was like, would you be interested in answering questions like about your own sex life? I know that you do it like with your examples within, Pillow Talks podcast, but do people ask you specifically about your sex life a lot?
They do. And I like to be open about it. Like,
Okay.
I was encouraging people listening to like be that person to be vulnerable and go first a few minutes
Yeah.
ago. And Xander and I like to think of ourselves in the same way too. Like, we
Okay.
know that talking about sex is awkward and uncomfortable and embarrassing. We all
Yeah.
have shame around it.
Yeah.
And so we like to challenge ourselves to go there ourselves and say, like, yeah, watch us do this. So that we do it a lot in sex talks. We do it a lot on Instagram. And we share, stuff about our own life. So we do have boundaries around like what does and doesn't feel comfortable for us to talk about. So the
Right.
best example of that is we won't share how often we have sex.
Okay.
That question, that's one of the number one questions that we get asked.
Yeah.
And the reason we won't answer it is because we really truly believe that people put way too much of an emphasis on frequency. I think quality of sex is way more important than the quantity that you're having. Maybe there's some overlaps with fitness too, right? It's like, sure, you
Yeah.
can do 30 terrible reps, but like that's not going to be anywhere near as good for you as 10 quality reps, right? It's actually very
100%.
similar now that I think about it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Um,
that's so true. I'm sure people also like would potentially compare their journey to yours too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would take that answer as like, oh, well, if they're the experts in this and that's the right answer, that's what we, should shoot for.
Yeah.
And we are very clear with people that like there is no magic number of how much sex you should be having. And if that's the question that you're focusing on, you're thinking about the wrong thing. You're approaching your sex
Yes.
life in the wrong way.
Oh, that's great. That does like relate so much to fitness too. Like you are really thinking, how often should I work out? I'm like, well, if they're all shitty, then none,
Uh-huh.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Okay. So I'd love to, well, actually, we'll edit this into this because I want to share this episode. I listened to an episode recently where you actually did the sex positions and then you were like laughing about it like on the episode. You'll have to send me the link afterwards so I can link to it, but it was hilarious because Vanessa and Xander like do all the things on their page, but they went through a whole sex position guide and like did them as they were on this podcast episode. And it was so hilarious. So I'll have to link that in the show notes. We talked really briefly about 69 because I know that's your favorite number. Is there a way for me to like it, Vanessa? Because I just don't love it.
Okay, so I like the number 69. I do not like the act of 69. This is something
Yeah.
this is probably the biggest disagreement we have about our sex life. Xander thinks it's amazing. He loves it. For me, I'm just not a fan. Like, there's
Yeah.
too much going on. I would rather focus on just giving or just receiving. The
Yes.
position itself can be difficult. I feel like I can't do my best work and I can't receive Xander's best work either. So for me, it's just too much. But it's a very polarizing act. People either love it or hate it.
And I'm like, sometimes I think like, do they actually love it because they like, oh, 69, like it's this like cool
Uh-huh.
thing? Or do you actually like enjoy the act? Because like you said, you can't give and receive the same amount at the same time. Like there's just no possible way of doing that, right?
You'll have to ask Xander. He'll have to come back for part 2 or something. But I think he genuinely likes it. He's like, it's just everything all at once. But my other pet peeve is that he gets very distracted. He's like enjoying himself. It's feeling good, and then he kind of tapers off the sensation, the stimulation on me, and I'm like, buddy, you got to keep it consistent here.
That's
You're
why he
enjoying it
likes
too
it,
much.
Vanessa. Yeah, that's why he likes it. Is because you're doing such a great job. You're putting in 70%, his like 30 at that point.
I will say though, one interesting little trick to try with 69. So most people do it where like one partner's on the bottom and the other partner's on the top. And it
Yeah.
just like, it can be a difficult position to balance in. So one thing that is worth trying is flipping it so that you're both on your sides. So you still have
Okay.
the orientation of like your heads are in each other's crotches, but you're both like on your sides. That can be a lot more manageable for some people. But
Yeah.
even then,
Oh,
it's not my
whatever.
jam.
Yeah. I want to talk about self pleasure because I feel like that's also a topic that is, it's this like weird stigma or stereotype with it. And again, something that I didn't even really discover until I was like late 20s. And now I'm like, oh, I actually know what I like and what I don't like. So,
Mhm.
how do you like, how do you get people to like just start trying it and doing it and understanding their body more?
The biggest thing that comes up around masturbation is, as women, we grew up our entire lives being taught that it's this bad thing.
Yeah.
There's much more of a like, oh, boys will be boys type of thing. And we laugh about like the crusty socks that you find in the laundry hamper, all
Yeah.
that. But like with women, when with girls, it's like, ooh, good girls don't do that. You're not supposed to do that. And so we grow up feeling so ashamed of it. So my personal story was like, I explored masturbation and discovered what I liked about my body, but it felt like this horrifically shameful thing that I was doing. And I was
Yeah.
certain that I was the only person doing it. I was like, I've
Yeah.
found this interesting thing about my body. It feels really good, but I'm definitely a weirdo. Nobody else is doing this. This is so embarrassing. I can never tell anybody that I do this. So I think part of the journey needs to be recognizing that we were given all of these crappy beliefs about it growing up and made to feel so deeply ashamed of it. But we can also choose, like, I'm not going to let all that shaming continue to affect me. I really believe that pleasure is our birthright. I believe there is nothing more beautiful than us like exploring our own bodies, discovering what we like, what works for us. And masturbation is such a central part of having a healthy relationship with sex. So it's definitely something worth exploring. I'll also say it's never too late to explore either. So many women tell, and I'm glad you mentioned, like, for yourself, that it wasn't something that you discovered really until your 20s. Like, a lot of women will say, I feel like I missed the boat and now it's too late for me to do it. It is never too late.
Yeah.
Like, I've worked with women, I've coached women who were in their 70s and 80s who started masturbating for the first time in their entire lives. So it is definitely not ever too late to explore.
Yeah. And there's also no judgment to whenever you do decide to get into that or explore it. So, okay, when you're exploring, what are we doing? What are we looking for? What are we feeling? What's happening?
Okay, first thing that we want to do is we want to spend a little bit of time warming ourselves up. So if you've ever had an experience with a partner where somebody just like went into your pants way too fast and you're like, hold on, like, can we
Yeah.
slow this down a little bit, enjoy it? A lot of women who are exploring masturbation for the first time do that to themselves. It's just like hands straight down the pants. And,
Okay.
and they'll tell me like, oh, it doesn't feel good. I don't like it. You got to ease your way into it. So I know it can feel cheesy sometimes, but truly, like, take the time to set up a good environment, like touch your body in other ways, and get yourself like relaxed and turned on for it. Then I like to get specific again. Like, I think, a lot of times you'll see articles online, they're like, yeah, just explore. And you're like, okay, but like what do I do?
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so I'll give you two techniques that I think every woman should explore. So the first thing that we need to do is get a sense of if we like direct clitoral stimulation or indirect clitoral stimulation. So for us, the clitoris is the center of the universe for pleasure. It's the most sensitive part of our bodies. It's actually biologically the equivalent of the penis. They're made out of the same tissues. So we want to pay a lot of attention to the clitoris. But women tend to be in two broad camps. Some women like directly touching the clitoris, and other women like touching it more indirectly. So direct touching is going to feel like too intense, maybe even painful or uncomfortable. So indirect touching could be like touching around the clitoris or even keeping your underwear on while you touch over it. So first we want to get a sense of like what you like better. So what I like to do is tell women to start off tracing a circle, like a wide circle around your clitoris. So you're not directly touching it at first. And then you kind of narrow the circle down like tighter and tighter diameter, like you're doing a spiral until you're starting to graze against the edge of the clitoris and then over the top of the clitoris. And then swirl it all the way back out again and kind of swirl in and out a few times and get a sense of what feels better for you. Do you like it when you're having that direct contact, or do you like it better when you're having the indirect contact? That's really valuable information to know. So if you're noticing that you're liking the indirect better, then what you can do, one of the most popular techniques for masturbation is use your fingers like in a peace sign, and you want to slide them up and down the sides of the clitoris. So again, you're not making direct contact with it, but you're just sliding up and down. Also use lube. I forgot to mention that earlier. Lube is your best friend with exploring masturbation. If you realized that you liked the direct clitoral stimulation better, then the most popular stroke for that is going to be a diagonal stroke across the clitoris. And you can try the two different varieties of diagonal, see what feels more natural in your hand. Also, a lot of women report that there's a certain quadrant of the clitoris that feels more sensitive than the others. So like if you imagine your clitoris is a pie cut into 4 slices, there's going to be one of those slices that might feel a little bit more sensitive. So if you do have that, you want to make sure your diagonal stroke is hitting that quadrant. So just explore one stroke at first. Don't get too complicated. Don't feel like you have to try out a million techniques. Just do one of those 2 strokes and play around with the pressure and the speed that you're using. I sometimes call this the Goldilocks method. Like you want to start off too soft and too slow, and then work your way up and do one at a time. So like, let's start really soft at first, work your way up to more pressure, and try to find that Goldilocks of like, that's too soft, that's too hard, this feels just right. And do the same thing with your speed too.
Ladies and gentlemen, she just gave that away for free.
Yeah.
Wow. Like,
Sure.
that was incredible. And
Your
honestly,
quickie masterclass.
I didn't even realize too that there's like people like the direct or indirect, because I
Mhm,
myself I'm very indirect. When it's like right
mhm.
on, I'm like, it's like uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. It's too intense. Like
Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that there was like 2 basically separate ways to do this kind of.
Uh-huh. And this can be a challenge when you have a male partner too, because most men these days like know about the clitoris and understand about it, and sometimes they can get a little too excited and like really treat it like a button, like it's the magic button. Let me just press it,
Yes.
press it, press it, press it. So sometimes you have to coach your partner of like, yes, it is very, very sensitive, but this, making sure you're not touching it directly, that's the way you're going to make me feel the best.
Do you feel, I mean, have you done a poll for this yet? Like, is it like half and half for what people like? What women
Yeah,
like?
it's roughly half and half, a little bit more skewed towards the direct contact. but it's
Okay,
pretty
so
even.
interesting.
Yeah.
Then the quadrants too. That's so I had no
Mhm.
idea for that. What is like, is there some sort of like science behind that, or is it just like based on the person?
No, it's more anecdotally. And for most people, like, so you may not have a most sensitive quadrant, but if you do, it tends to be the upper left quadrant. So upper being like closer to your head, and left being like your left hand. Like if you're, looking down at your body, it's going to be
Oh
on
my
that side.
goodness, so interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw you post this maybe a few weeks ago or something. Does it matter if you are a quote innie or outie based on self-pleasure or masturbation?
Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I am here to talk about our sponsor for today's episode. Let's talk about supplements. What do you guys like to use? I love Legion Athletics. Give me that vanilla whey protein in a shake, in my overnight oats. Heck, I might even just dry scoop it. That's how much I love it. The texture, the taste, the quality, it's top notch. Not only does it taste great, but they're backed by science. From their protein powders to pre-workouts, they've got the formula down. It's like they've cracked the code for better workouts and recovery. They deliver the highest quality supplements because they have a team of doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, and other clinicians making sure all the supplements go through rigorous third-party testing, so you know what you put in your body is safe. I may be biased because this is the only brand I've been using for years, but I think you should give it a shot. So if I've changed your mind and you're a little curious, head on over to legionathletics.com. Use code TerraTalk to get 20% off your next order. See what fits your vibe. No pressure from me. I'm just saying this could be the upgrade your fitness routine needs. Now back to more Terra.
With labia?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another really good question. So as vulva owners, as women, we have two sets of labia. So you have your outer labia, which are the ones that grow pubic hair. And then you have the inner labia, which don't have pubic hair. And so most of us have this idea, and a lot of it comes from porn. But we have this idea that the outer ones are supposed to be larger and the inner ones are supposed to be like very tiny and petite. But for a lot of people, the inner ones are actually longer. And there can be all sorts of different sizes and shapes. They can be even or uneven, all sorts of different things. So there is no correlation though with like, are you larger outer ones or larger inner ones? Those people are going to feel more pleasure or less pleasure. It's totally variable and everybody looks really unique. So I definitely recommend for women who feel self-conscious about the ways their vulva looks, like Google vulva, like there are a couple of different artists who do projects of like having pictures of all different kinds of vulvas. And so when you can really see how much variety there is out there, that not everybody looks exactly like what you see in porn, it makes you just feel so much better about your body and recognizing like, oh my God, vulvas come in so many different shapes or sizes. It's amazing.
Okay. Have you seen the show Naked Attraction?
I have.
Okay.
I've only seen a couple of episodes. I started over at the beginning. It is a fascinating show.
You see all different types on both sides. Like it's really,
Uh-huh.
honestly, if there's anything about like the show itself is like, for those of you that don't know, the show, it's a dating show, but it's all based off of the way you look and your body only, really. So they like go each level, they like bring the curtain up and you just start and see their bottom half, and you will literally just see from your belly button down to your feet. And they have to like choose which one they like to like, that's which one they don't like to send home. But I will say, you see all different types. And I
Mhm.
didn't even know some of these things existed. Right. And so I think
Mhm.
like Googling or watching shows like this where they're actual real people is actually really helpful for people to see.
Absolutely. And the thing that I appreciate about that show too is people talk, the person who's the main contestant or whatever, they talk about what they like and don't like about people's bodies.
Yeah.
And I'm a little conflicted about some of it, but what I do really love is you hear people describe like, oh, I like this body type or I like this thing for this reason. And you really truly get to see like people like so much variety.
Yeah.
I think especially as women, we've been taught our entire lives that there's this incredibly narrow window of what our bodies are supposed to look like, of what beauty is. But hearing real people talk about like, no, I like a curvier body, or I like seeing somebody's belly folds in that way, or I like really thick thighs. Like
Mhm.
that was very interesting for me to watch and such a good reminder of like, yeah, we all have different tastes when it comes to bodies and different things that turn us on. And there is
Yeah,
no one right way to be sexy or attractive.
I know. And all of the piercings. That's all I saw. I was like,
And
that
the
just looks like it
tattoos.
hurts. And then the like, there's all these like different ways to shave their pubic hair too. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I feel like it's like, this is private. I shouldn't see it. But then I'm also like, it's actually really nice to see just like normal bodies too. So I
Uh-huh.
appreciated it. So you said, okay, let's go back to self pleasure real fast. You said lube is your friend. Is
Yes.
there like can you tell us why? And also, is there like a specific lube that is better or worse than others?
I love lube because genital tissues are very delicate and sensitive, and it is really easy to feel some amount of discomfort. And especially if you're exploring masturbation for the first time, you're going to be a little bit nervous, maybe uncomfortable. You're probably not going to be super well lubricated on your own. So it's
Mhm.
going to feel a little bit drier. And if your finger is kind of dragging and pulling along your skin, it's going to feel distracting. It's not going to feel good. So lube
Right.
creates this really nice, slippery, like barrier over your skin. I recommend all couples, like all people use it. It's just such an easy way to like create a little bit more sensation and decrease any sort of discomfort, decrease pain. It really is such a great thing. Lube is very personal though. So a formulation that works really well on one person's body may not feel great on another person's body. So the tricky thing about it is that you do have to experiment a little bit, but you can find sex toy stores that have like sampler packs that you can try out a couple of different variations. But in general, the advice that I give is number one, don't ever buy your lube from a drugstore. The drugstore brands are just not good. They're going to feel really sticky and kind of tacky and just not feel like a good sensation. Number two, don't buy anything that claims to like enhance sensation, like warming or tingling. Those can often be really irritating. So don't buy anything like that. And then number three, I recommend trying out a silicone based lube at first. So, most lubes tend to be either silicone based or water based. In my opinion, on my body, silicone based lubes just feel silkier, they last longer, whereas water based lubes can tend to dry up. And as they're drying up, they can start to get a little bit of that tacky feeling. So, I would recommend starting with a silicone based lube first and see if you like that.
I just noticed the other day at Target, they're selling lube and they sell dildos and vibrators and all different things now. Like it's kind of crazy how it's just showing up in more ways.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely appreciate that. And I'm a little nervous about the specific kinds of lubes that
Okay.
Target's selling. So I have to go check it out. But in
Yes.
general, like with lube and with sex toys, you get what you pay for. If you're buying
Okay.
something that is very cheap, it is most likely not really great for your body. So
So
invest a little bit.
what would you look for like in a sex toy then? I mean, I guess it totally
Yeah.
depends on what you want and what you're looking for, but if you're like trying to get into that.
The most important thing that you want to look for in a sex toy is that it says that it's made out of body safe materials. So the sex
Okay.
toy company is highly unregulated. There aren't safety standards in place to protect people who are buying them. And a lot of sex toy companies use this loophole as well, where they write on the back of the toy for novelty use only. And that's their way of saying, like, oh, yeah, this is just a little joke. You're not actually going to use it on your genitals, right? And so they can use
Oh,
materials that are not safe to be in contact with the most like delicate tissues in our body. So you really want a toy that's made out of body safe materials. Specifically look for that. Those are going to be more expensive toys. In general, I tend to tell people like, unless you're spending over $100, you're probably not getting a quality toy. But a lot of these cheaper toys are made with chemicals that can leach into your body, can disrupt your endocrine system. All sorts of bad stuff can happen. So it's definitely worth investing in sex toys if you want to explore that.
Wow, that is something I definitely didn't know either. That's such a
Most
crazy
people
loophole.
don't. Yeah, it's wild and it's just so unsafe. So I like to try to spread more accurate information so people can make healthier decisions for their bodies. And I get that it
Yes.
sucks. Like, the tough thing about sex toys is you don't know if you're going to like it or not. And that's
Yeah.
a big investment to make in something that's not returnable. And,
Yeah.
you're not quite sure if you're going to like it or not. So you don't need to experiment with sex toys if you don't want to. Sometimes people feel like they're supposed to. You don't need to, but if you want to, definitely make sure that you're making a good investment in it.
If you wanted to get like try some out, is there one that you would like recommend over others? Like to
There's
start?
not like one specific toy that I absolutely love. We do have a page on our website. It's vmtherapy.com/recommended, then a little hyphen and products. And we have some listed out there that people can go check out.
Okay, cool. Do you like toys yourself?
I actually don't like toys. That's something that surprises a lot of people.
That is
For
surprising.
me, yeah, for me, what happened, there are a couple things. So the orgasms that I will have with a vibrator, they happen too quickly for me. It's like it's over and done with. And it's this sort of like, oh, okay, I guess we're done with that. There's
Yeah.
no like buildup or enjoyment. The orgasms themselves are also not as powerful as I can have like with my hands or Xander's hands or mouth. And I also find that for me, they encourage a little bit of masturbatory laziness. Like
Mm.
I'll turn the toy on and just sort of hold it there. Oftentimes I'll be like, on my phone looking at something else or like daydreaming. You're just sort of like waiting for it to deliver an orgasm to you rather than
Yeah.
being really active and in the moment with myself and like truly enjoying that experience. So I'm actually not a huge fan of them personally,
That's
but
actually
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
they can be amazing. Like I'm not a sex toy hater either. Like
Yeah.
I think they can be really wonderful and they can be particularly great for people who might struggle with being able to use their hands like
Yeah.
a lot of chronic illness issues and stuff like that, like, or people who are on antidepressants or other medications that can dull physical sensations. Like toys can create this intensity that can kind of help overcome the dulling effect of some of those medications. So they can be amazing for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, and they're also just like an accessory. It's like an addition to,
Yeah.
but you have your own bodies. It's just like working out, right? You can like get a really good body weight exercise in, but if you can get some weights in there, it just maybe could enhance your
Hmm.
experience, but maybe not.
Hmm.
But make sure you get the ones that are body safe
Body safe.
because man, I'm gonna write that down immediately.
Hmm.
Make sure I get that. What is like I've had some questions come in when I told people that I was bringing you on the show. So, what is a quote, I'm going to put this in quotes, healthy sex life?
Oh,
What does that
it's a
look
good
like?
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, a healthy sex life is going to look different for every single person. But what it needs to start with is us understanding what it is that we want out of sex. So, that question that I brought up earlier, like, what does great sex mean to you? It's
Mm,
interesting because we all feel this pressure to have an amazing sex life, to be great in bed, but most of us haven't taken the time to really think about, like, "But what does that actually mean to me?"
yeah.
And we're all looking to have different kinds of experiences when it comes to sex. Like some people, it's about purely the physical pleasure aspect of it. Like, I just like to feel good. For some people, it might be about like, I like to be really present with my partner and both of us like in that moment together, truly connecting. Other people might be interested in like exploring sex. Like I like to try new things, try new positions, bring in toys, play with different fantasies. So taking the time to figure out like when I want to have sex, what is that experience that I'm looking to have? I think part of a healthy sex life is also us being willing to take a look at the ways that we've been taught to be shamed and embarrassed about sex and actively working on dismantling those beliefs and creating a healthier set of beliefs and values for ourselves. So, yeah, maybe I was taught that masturbation was this very shameful, sinful thing that good girls don't do. But as an adult, I want to believe that masturbation is healthy and exciting and gives me confidence. So, getting clear on that and yeah, putting the work in to dismantle those beliefs that we were all taught to believe. And then I could answer this question for another hour, but I guess one other component that I will name is a healthy sex life requires effort. So whenever we see sex on TV and in the movies, it always looks effortless. And the number one word that people bring up with me is natural. I just want my sex life to feel natural. And I like to say, everything that we see on TV and the movies is complete and utter crap. Like, there is nothing spontaneous, effortless, natural about sex. Like, sex is something that we actively have to work on. And I love to compare sex to a hobby. Like, we have hobbies in our lives and we are willing to devote like time, money, energy into exploring those hobbies. And we don't judge ourselves for that. So, for example, like, let's say that you really love playing golf and you want to get better at golf. Like, you're going to take lessons. You're going to make sure that you're getting plenty of reps in on the court. I'm obviously not a golfer. I'm like, what is it called? Hitting the ball around. I don't know. You're going to buy new clubs and you're going to buy new bags and balls and all that kind of stuff. And so you don't judge yourself for any of that. You see that as a sign of respect for, like, it's important to me to be better at golf. I want to explore new techniques. I want to get better. I want to improve myself. So I think we can look at sex in the same sort of way. Like, this is something that I value, that I want to have a great time with, and I'm willing to invest my time, my money, my energy into getting better at it.
How do you know if you're in a relationship and you think sex is the issue and it may be something else? Like, it may be an underlying issue.
Ooh, that's a great question. It very often is. I think one of the problems with sex is that most of us think of it, we compartmentalize sex. We think of it as, oh, it's just that thing that we do at the end of the night with the lights off and the door closed, like, right before we fall asleep. But the reality is that our entire relationship affects how we show up with sex, and sex affects the rest of our relationship as well. Like, I think of physical intimacy and emotional intimacy as two sides of the same coin. So we very often will experience other issues coming into the bedroom. A prime example of this is emotional disconnection. A lot of people will tell Xander and I, like, oh, I have no sex drive, I have no desire. And one of the things that we'll ask them is like, well, tell us about how your relationship's going overall. And you'll hear things like, oh, well, we haven't had a date night in ages, and I'm so annoyed with him because he doesn't do his chores around the house, and we've been fighting over the kids a lot. And it's like, okay, so why would you want to have sex with him if you're annoyed at him and resentful of him and you're feeling disconnected from him? So being able to recognize that, like, the emotional connection plays a really huge role in how we show up with each other sexually, and vice versa.
Do you think that people can figure that out on their own, or do you feel like in that case you need kind of this outside resource like a therapist?
I would start with sex talks. So we talk about that. We actually call it the physical emotional conundrum, and that where some people want to feel emotionally connected before they have sex, and other people like to have sex as a way of feeling emotionally connected. So sex talks is really meant to be a resource to help couples understand themselves and each other better and work together as a team to create that healthy, exciting sex life that we're all wanting. So I'd start there first. And then if you're struggling with having those conversations, or feeling like, oh, I still don't really know what my answers are for myself, or, we're not able to, like, find some sort of middle ground here, then you can definitely pull in a therapist or a sex therapist to help you dive in more.
Okay, I love that. I have one more question from the audience, and neither of us have kids. Also, congrats to Xander on his vasectomy.
Thank
So,
you.
it's good too. But I got this question coming up a lot. What is a good age to talk about sex with kids, and how do you actually bring that up with kids?
Such a good question. I'm really glad that they are asking. So you need to start talking about sex with your kids really as young as about 3 to 5 years old. And there are different age appropriate things to share with kids at different stages. But I think the biggest mistake that parents make is they think of the sex talk as the talk the one and only time that you sit down with your kid and you explain everything to them. Like, not only does that feel very overwhelming as a parent, like, okay, I've got this one shot at it, but also
Yeah.
most parents tend to wait way too late. And the reality is that kids are becoming exposed to sex at a younger and younger age. I mean,
Right.
currently, the average, actually, I want you to guess. What do you think the average age is that kids see porn for the first time?
I want to say older, but I'm going to say 8.
Yeah, 8.
Oh,
8 years
yeah.
old.
I
Yeah.
was like, I want to say at
I
least
know.
11 or
Like, I
10 or
set you up for
11.
that one. You're like, it's got to be something shocking, right?
Yeah,
It's not like
something ridiculous.
19.
Yeah.
But yeah, 8 years old, which is
Wow.
wild. So,
Yeah.
parents have to start talking about this stuff with their kids at a much younger age. So, at around 3 to 5, you can teach them basic things like the anatomically correct names for their genitals. So, we don't want to use like words like pee pee or wee wee, like teach
Yeah.
them penis and vulva and vagina. And then as they get older, that then there are different types of things that you can bring into the conversations, but it should be many conversations, and it should
Yeah.
be both conversations that you initiate and also being willing to answer whatever questions your kid has for you too.
And I will say too, the more you are versed in your own body and your own sexual wellness, the
Hmm.
more you can then talk to other people about it,
Yeah,
which is super helpful.
absolutely.
And your book here, if you're watching on YouTube, Sex Talk, this is the book. I will link it in the show notes. Teddy and I went through this whole book together when it came out last year, and it was awesome. So thanks for putting that out there for all of us.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
I like to end the podcast with asking, what is one thing I like to say before your fitness journey started, but let's call this your sexual journey. What is one thing you wish you knew before you started your sexual wellness journey?
I wish that I knew that sex was for me too.
Ooh,
Early in my journey, I really, and I think this is something so many women can relate to. Like, I thought of sex as something that I give to my partner or, do for my partner. It was really all about like his pleasure and his enjoyment and making sure he was satisfied and he liked it. And it took me way too long to realize that, like, this is an experience for me too. And I get to experience pleasure and I get to have needs and I get to make requests. So if I could go back to that younger version of myself, I would tell her, like, this gets to be an experience for you too.
how old were you when you were like, this is for me too?
Probably not until like 23, 22, 23 was when I really realized, like, I've gotten myself into some bad patterns here and I really want
Yeah.
to change this up.
Was it like a specific moment or just over time you were like, I got to stop doing this?
Okay, there was one specific
Okay.
very embarrassing moment. So, what happened for me was I faked orgasm for so many years. And it was interesting because I figured out how to orgasm on my own, but I was too embarrassed and ashamed and felt like I wasn't really allowed to, ask for things from my partner. So I just faked every single orgasm. And I got really good at it. I put on a great performance. And as the time went on, like, was starting to feel more and more frustrated of like, why am I spending so much time and effort putting on this amazing performance, but
Yeah.
I'm not actually enjoying myself. And I'm like making my partners feel so good about themselves when they're not doing anything for me. So there was one moment where I had been hooking up with this guy and he had used his hands on me for a little while and I had faked an orgasm. And he said to me, I can play you like a fiddle. And to me, like, my stomach just dropped right out in that moment. It was like, oh, this is so gross that
Yeah.
not only have I faked this whole performance, but now this guy is so proud of himself and so congratulatory of like what a good job he did when it was a complete and utter lie. So that was really that moment for me that I was like, I'm never doing this again. That's
Ah,
it. Never doing it again. And I didn't fake another orgasm after that
hell
point.
yeah. Good for you. And I hope that he sees you today and sees what you put out there. And hopefully he's a better partner to whoever he is with. I'm like, at first I was like, oh, I'm so mad at him, but I'm like, no, it's okay. You made it out on top. Look at you now, New York Times bestseller.
Yeah, I've told that story a few times, and in the back of my head, I'm like, I wonder if he'll ever hear that. And I wonder if he'll recognize himself in that story, or if that was like a classic line that he just used with lots of women around that time. But I also think about like, we're all hurt by misinformation about sex, and we're all struggling with it in our own ways. So I really don't think that he was, trying to be a jerk about it. I think he was struggling with his own self-consciousness and insecurities and all the things. So that's part of why I'm so passionate about doing this work, because I want us all to have healthier and happier relationships with sex.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on. I feel like we can have a million conversations about this, but share where people can find you, what you're doing right now. This is going to come out right around Valentine's Day. So feel free to share anything you're working on, or
Great.
where can people find you?
Well, if it's coming out around Valentine's Day, we will be right about to wrap up our biggest event of the year. We're actually changed the name of it this year, but we've done it for a few years. We call it Sweet or Spicy. So around Valentine's Day, we open up our 2 challenges for couples, which I know you're very familiar with. We have the sex challenge and our connection challenge. So the sex challenge is obviously more about physical intimacy. The connection challenge is about emotional intimacy. And these are challenges where you get different prompts every single day to like help you connect in the bedroom and outside of the bedroom. So we do those both at the same time. There is a crazy good discount on them right now. And they're such a great Valentine's Day gift. Just very unique, different from the usual like flowers and crappy chocolates kind of thing. So definitely check that out. You can find all the information about that at vmtherapy.com. It's my initials, vmtherapy.com. And then otherwise, we are very active on Instagram. Xander and I do stories there together every day, posts every day. We're at Vanessa and Xander is with an X. So check us out there. And we'd love to say hi to anyone from your community and just let us know you found us through the podcast.
Yes. Also that 30-day challenge, please do it, you guys. Teddy and I did it a couple years ago, and we tell all of our friends about it. So it was amazing. And again, thank you so much for being here. You and Xander are so much fun. We just love you so much. So appreciate you. And thank you for your time again.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to this Tower Talk. I hope you're taking something away from this episode. And if so, I would love to hear about it. You can connect with me at The Tower Talk and at Tara LaFerrara on Instagram. A few ways you can help support the show and help spread the word. You can share it on Instagram, tag at The Tower Talk and at Tara LaFerrara. Send an episode to a friend, and please leave a review if the show is resonating with you. It takes just a few minutes, and it means so much to help this show grow, and it helps me to continue to bring on badass guests for all of us to learn and grow from. I am so happy you're here and excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time, be a badass with a good ass.